In a contest too close to call, every presidential endorsement is an event.
One of the most conservative politicians ever is planning to vote for a Democrat, probably for the first time in his life.
Neoconservative Dick Cheney is far from a darling of the American left. The former vice president, instrumental in the Iraq War, has now mounted a civil war in the Republican Party. The man who served under George Bush Jr. announced he will be voting Democrat in the presidential election, after his daughter, Liz Cheney, had said this about Donald Trump.
I do think people really need to sit down and think through what would it mean to put this depraved human being in the most powerful office in the world, and why that's a risk we can't take. They're misogynistic pigs.
The party unity here at the Republican National Convention in July has now been broken by a member of the party's establishment. After winning the endorsement of America's biggest police union, Trump responded in a post on his social media platform. The Republican nominee called Dick Cheney an irrelevant Republican in name only. The question is, what, if any, will the intervention of a Republican grandee have on the electorate? At present, a national poll tracker showed Kamala Harris held a lead with 47.5% of voters, compared with just 43.9% who were behind Trump. But what matters most is where these voters fall in swing states like this. In Georgia, the candidates are almost neck and neck, with Kamala Harris on 46.6% and Trump on 46.1%. But in Arizona, Trump is ahead with 46% of voters, compared to 45.6% supporting Kamala Harris. These margins are tight and ever-changing, but where there is a clear lead is in cash. Whereas Trump has raised $130 million, the Kamala Harris war chest is almost 3 times the size at $361 million. But this may galvanize Trump's campaign as he heads into next week's big debate. Down on dollars, with his party's establishment against him, there is nothing Trump likes better than playing the underdog.
Simeon Brown reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Greg Swenson from Republicans Abroad, and I asked him if the Dick Cheney endorsement of the Democrats meant the Republican Party had completely changed.
This shouldn't surprise anyone, but I don't think it moves the needle, because there's always been this never Trump group in the Republican Party, and they're not getting any bigger, I don't think.
Does it represent a Republican Party that just doesn't exist anymore? It's an old bastion of what was once before, and that's just not here.
The voters, the supporters of the Republican Party, are different than they were a generation ago. And so surely the party's changed. I don't think it goes back to that traditional country club Republican from, the Bush years and John McCain and Mitt Romney. But I do think that the future of the party depends on someone who can unite the two.
Looking at the sentencing decision that's going to be kind of after the presidential election, just how much do you think that's going to weigh on the minds of undecided voters?
I don't know if it will weigh on undecideds. It surely helped with the base, and you're seeing a massive enthusiasm in the Democrat Party, especially since Vice President Harris became the candidate. There's no doubt about that. But they're not really addressing the undecideds or the moderate voters. And those moderates will look at the lawfare and the weaponization of the justice system and actually lean Trump because of it. So I think in many ways that's backfired. It surely backfired in the nomination process, unless you think the Democrats wanted Trump to be the candidate, and that's why they were doing it. Ron DeSantis was up 3 points over Trump before the Alvin Bragg indictment, and look what happened. So I think that the people who don't like Trump are not going to vote for him, but that's not new. That's been around for 10 years now, 8 or 10 years.
And just in terms of the prep between the two this weekend, what do you think that's looking like in the retrospective hotel rooms or wherever they're getting their prep? Massive
difference in preparation. Vice President Harris has been holed up for a couple of days already. She's doing 5 days of prep, just like Joe Biden did. It didn't work for Joe Biden. I don't know what they were doing the whole time.
Well, it's very different for Joe Biden, of course, you would say.
And I don't think we'll have any massive debacle like the Biden performance was on June 27th. But I do think that Trump will be doing some prep, not as much as Kamala Harris, but he'll do some. If he can stay on point, stay on message, He wins on inflation and he wins on the border. Just talk about those two things.
Will he be able to do that, though, against Kamala Harris, who's going to be a very different opponent to Joe Biden? Joe Biden was, you know, it was possibly easier to go up against Biden than it is against Harris, that is going to be laser focused as a prosecutor, she said in the past.
Absolutely. And Aisha, you're right. You know, all Donald Trump had to do in the first debate was nothing. You know, if you look at what he actually did, it wasn't necessarily a great performance. It's just that Biden's was so bad. You know, he had that one good line where he said, I don't know what he just said, and neither did he. And he might be able to say that about Vice President Harris. If she goes off message, she doesn't usually do well when she has to ask secondary questions. It's going to be tough to call. It's going to be interesting. I don't know that he will stay on message. If he does, he'll win. And if he doesn't, it's going to be tight.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
Aisha.
you so much.